News Central now continues in Southern Africa, where South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has lauded an African mission to mediate peace in Ukraine as historic after returning from negotiations in Kiev and St. Petersburg. The high-level delegation met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Saturday before traveling to Russia to meet with Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on Sunday. Ramaphosa said in a newsletter issued on Monday that the initiative is historic since it's the first time African leaders have embarked on a peace mission beyond the continent's borders. Ramaphosa emphasized that one of the mission's significant achievements was a warm reaction it received from both sides, which he thinks is promising and gives reason to hope that the ideas will be considered. In the meantime, the Democratic Alliance says it's submitting urgent parliamentary questions about the cost of the Africa Peace Mission trip to Russia and Ukraine, led by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The party is calling for extra accountability for extra security personnel, journalists, and the allegations around the arms that the crew was carrying. The plane carrying President Ramaphosa's team was detained by Polish authority for more than 20 hours before the team was released to their hotels. They later abandoned the trip to Kiev and Moscow and returned to South on Sunday afternoon.
One
Now,
tonight for 4 hours to get in here. She was strip searched. It has never happened that we have strip searched anyone with a diplomatic passport just to get us out of here. Right? Now they say we don't have permits. We have permits. The only difference is now they say we can't bring a copy of a permit. We must bring the original.
Now, Senior Training Coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies in Pretoria, William Eels, joins me on the news for more on this. Thank you, William, for joining me.
Good morning to you.
Good morning to you too. Now, William, let's start this conversation by looking at President Ramaphosa's huge 120-man strong security team, plus 12 containers of weapons. Was this necessary? Is it a norm?
Well, every international travel by the ministers of South Africa as well as the state president, there are some rules of engagement that they have to follow. We have to look at what the international norm is, and that is that the country, the host country, is normally responsible for the security of their guests, and that include the presidents that visited Poland as a transit country for before they traveled on to Ukraine. So yes, we understand that the dynamics about what is going on in Ukraine. We understand the dynamics about the train trip that they had to undertake because they could not land in Kiev. So all of that actually contributed to security concerns from the South African side. But we must also understand that they don't just go into a country with hundreds of people before, without planning. We understand that the planning on this one was not what it was supposed to be, and that is why it panned out the way it did. But normally, an advanced team will normally travel to this country. They will engage with their counterparts. They will do an assessment of the situation, and they will also have some negotiations with their counterparts before they feed back to their counterparts in South Africa that will then proceed with the planning. So every country is different. If you go to a country in conflict, obviously there's bigger concern for the safety and security of your principals. If you go to a peaceful country, then it will be a different story.
All right, bearing in mind the fact that the president was or is traveling to a war zone, as a former police and intelligence personnel, what kind of security setup is needed in such trips, especially on a trip like this one?
On a trip like this one, we must understand that, as I mentioned, it is the prime responsibility of the host country. So Poland, we believe, would have had extensive security arrangements in place. We must remember that it was not just the South African president that traveled, it was the presence of Senegal in your region, as well as Zambia and other heads of state that traveled there. So it was not just South Africa, but we must understand also that we don't have all the information, we don't have the intelligence that those people had before they did the planning. So it is very difficult to comment on a situation like this. But based on face value, it seems that it might have been an overkill.
Now, can we say that the concerns of the Polish authorities are valid, or is it just a political stance?
I think it's both. On the one hand, it's valid because there are certain concerns. On the other hand, we must also understand the dynamics of what is going on in the international arena at the moment, with the two sides that actually sort of developing. It's not yet that it's been formulated. We know that South Africa is perceived to be on the camp of Russia, even though they profess to be neutral. And the perception from the international world, especially Poland, who is a staunch ally of Ukraine, was not necessary that South Africa was neutral, and therefore they might not have anticipated a very friendly welcome from them. So they would have anticipated that they would be scrutinized. The welcome would not as warm as it was supposed to be. It could have been, but also that it was then necessary for them to make sure that everything is in place. They should have then at the end of the day ensured that their paperwork is in place, that there are no loopholes, that there was no stick that they provided to the Polish to hit them with, and it seems that it did not happen this time around.
All right, Senior Coordinator, Institute for Security Service in Pretoria, William Els, thank you so much for joining us.